At 7:02 a.m. on December 7, 1941, operators at the Opana radar station on the island of Oahu observed a signal on their screen that exceeded anything previously recorded during their shifts. A large formation of aerial contacts was moving from the north, occupying a broad sector of the scope and approaching at speed without deviation. The station was operating in a training status, but the contact was continuous and distinct. The information was transmitted to the information center. At the same time in Pearl Harbor, battleships lay at anchor in paired berths, crews were engaged in routine morning activities, and anti-aircraft ammunition remained stowed in accordance with peacetime handling procedures. Airfields on the island held aircraft parked in compact groups, with a limited number of machines assigned to immediate launch readiness. The information center received the radar report. A scheduled arrival of aircraft from the mainland appeared on the flight list. The air situation was assessed as not requiring immediate alert. The Opana station continued tracking for several more minutes before the contacts disappeared from the screen. 53 minutes later, aircraft appeared over the island. During 1941, the Pacific Fleet of the United States Navy was stationed primarily at Pearl Harbor, territory of Hawaii, under orders issued earlier in the year. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, auxiliary vessels, and naval aviation units were present in varying states of readiness. Army forces of the Hawaiian Department maintained coastal defenses, airfields, radar stations, and anti-aircraft units on Oahu and neighboring islands. Command relationships placed the Navy and Army under separate chains of command, with coordination conducted through standing procedures and periodic conferences. Throughout the year, diplomatic exchanges between the governments of Japan and the United States continued through official channels. Japanese diplomatic missions in Washington and Honolulu transmitted reports and instructions using coded communications. United States cryptographic units monitored and decrypted portions of Japanese diplomatic traffic under established intelligence programs. Distribution of this material followed defined protocols, with summaries forwarded to selected officials in Washington. Field commanders received information through regular channels and standing intelligence summaries. Naval intelligence assessments during 1941 identified the concentration of Japanese naval forces in home waters and noted Japanese operations in China and Southeast Asia. Fleet movements of the Imperial Japanese Navy were tracked through available reports, shipping intelligence, and radio intercept analysis. Gaps in coverage existed due to operational security measures, weather conditions, and limitations of reconnaissance range. In the Hawaiian area, Army radar stations had been established on Oahu as part of an aircraft warning system. These stations operated on scheduled training and operational periods. Personnel manning the stations were trained to report contacts to an information center, which was staffed during designated hours. Aircraft identification procedures relied on schedules of expected flights, recognition training, and communication between services. Naval aviation units at Pearl Harbor conducted patrols based on assigned sectors and available aircraft. Long-range patrol aircraft were limited in number, and patrol patterns varied according to directives in effect at the time. On several occasions during 1941, patrols were adjusted in response to intelligence assessments, logistical constraints, and weather considerations. On November 27, 1941, a series of dispatches were transmitted from Washington to Pacific commands. These messages conveyed that negotiations with Japan had ceased to produce results and that hostile action was considered possible. Commanders were instructed to undertake appropriate defensive measures while avoiding actions that might be construed as provocative. Receipt of these messages was acknowledged through normal communication channels. Following receipt of these instructions, commanders in Hawaii reviewed existing defense plans. Naval vessels continued routine operations, maintenance, and training schedules. Battleships were moored along Battleship Row, with pairs of ships secured together to conserve space and facilitate shore services. Aircraft were parked at airfields in accordance with local security measures, with concentration patterns influenced by concerns regarding sabotage. Anti-aircraft ammunition for naval vessels was stowed according to peacetime regulations, with certain allowances for ready-use ammunition. Army anti-aircraft units conducted training and maintenance activities and maintained prescribed readiness levels. Coastal artillery batteries remained under routine status, with exercises conducted as scheduled. On December 6, 1941, Japanese carrier strike forces were at sea under radio silence, proceeding toward the Hawaiian Islands. Their movement was not detected by United States reconnaissance assets. Weather conditions in the North Pacific included cloud cover and storms, which affected visibility and search effectiveness. During the evening of December 6 in Washington, further diplomatic messages from Japan were decrypted and translated. These messages instructed Japanese embassies to prepare for termination of negotiations. Distribution followed established intelligence procedures. Due to timing and transmission constraints, not all field commands received this information prior to the following morning. In Hawaii, the night of December 6 passed without unusual incidents. Naval and Army personnel followed standard weekend routines. Shore leave was granted under normal regulations. Command duty officers monitored communications and logged routine reports. Before dawn on December 7, 1941, Japanese carrier aircraft were prepared for launch. Flight crews received mission assignments and conducted pre-flight checks. Aircraft included torpedo bombers, dive bombers, horizontal bombers, and fighter aircraft. Ordnance was loaded in accordance with mission requirements, including aerial torpedoes modified for shallow water operations. At approximately 0600 local time in Hawaii, Japanese aircraft began launching from carriers positioned north of Oahu. Aircraft assembled into attack formations and proceeded toward the island using planned navigation routes. Radio silence was maintained. On Oahu, radar stations began operations in the early morning hours as part of scheduled training. At approximately 0702, radar operators at the Opana station detected a large formation of aircraft approaching from the north. The contact was tracked and reported by telephone to the information center. The information center, operating with limited staff due to the early hour, assessed the report in light of expected arrivals of Army aircraft from the mainland. No general alert was issued based on this report. Radar operators continued tracking until the contact moved beyond range. Other radar stations completed their scheduled operating periods and secured equipment. At approximately 0755, Japanese aircraft arrived over Pearl Harbor and surrounding airfields. The first wave commenced attacks on naval vessels, airfields, and military installations. Torpedo bombers approached at low altitude, releasing torpedoes against battleships moored along Ford Island and the southeast shore. Dive bombers and horizontal bombers attacked airfields, hangars, and parked aircraft. Fighter aircraft engaged airborne opposition and conducted strafing runs. Naval vessels at anchor attempted to respond with anti-aircraft fire as crews reached battle stations. Some ships were able to bring guns into action within minutes, others were constrained by damage, ammunition access, or incomplete manning. Battleships sustained hits from torpedoes and bombs, resulting in flooding, fires, and structural damage. Several vessels capsized or settled on the harbor bottom. Army airfields including Hickam Field, Wheeler Field, Bellows Field, and Kaneohe Naval Air Station were attacked. Aircraft on the ground were damaged or destroyed by bombing and strafing. Runways, hangars, and support facilities sustained damage. Personnel attempted to man anti-aircraft positions and launch available aircraft. At approximately 0825, a second wave of Japanese aircraft arrived, continuing attacks on remaining targets. Damage to ships and installations increased. Fires burned aboard several vessels and on shore. Medical facilities began receiving casualties. Emergency response actions were undertaken by military and civilian personnel. Communications within Hawaii and with the mainland were disrupted by damage to facilities and congestion. Reports of the attack were transmitted through available channels as conditions permitted. Commanders issued orders to account for personnel, secure installations, and prepare for further action. By approximately 1000, Japanese aircraft withdrew from the area and returned to their carriers. Recovery operations commenced aboard the carriers, and the strike force departed the vicinity. On Oahu, rescue, firefighting, medical treatment, and damage control efforts continued. Naval and Army units assessed damage and accounted for losses as the day progressed. Throughout the morning and afternoon of December 7, additional alerts were issued regarding possible further attacks. Patrols were initiated as resources allowed. Defensive measures were adjusted in response to the situation as understood at the time. The events of the morning were recorded in logs, reports, and messages prepared by units and commands. These records documented times, actions taken, damage sustained, and casualties. The situation in Hawaii remained under active military control as operations continued. During the hours following the withdrawal of Japanese aircraft on the morning of December 7, 1941, command centers on Oahu remained in a state of alert. Naval headquarters at Pearl Harbor and Army headquarters of the Hawaiian Department continued to receive fragmented reports from subordinate units. Communication circuits experienced congestion, and some lines were damaged or rendered temporarily unusable. Messages were relayed by telephone, radio, messenger, and written dispatch as circumstances permitted. At Pearl Harbor, damage control parties aboard surviving ships worked to extinguish fires, control flooding, and rescue trapped personnel. Oil fires burned on the surface of the harbor in areas where fuel tanks and ship bunkers had been ruptured. Small boats and tugs maneuvered among damaged vessels to assist with firefighting and evacuation. Hospital ships and shore medical facilities received wounded personnel. Triage procedures were applied according to established medical protocols. Battleships that had sunk or capsized were inspected by naval engineers as soon as conditions allowed. Preliminary assessments noted the condition of hulls, superstructures, machinery spaces, and magazines. Efforts were made to secure ammunition and sensitive equipment. Guard details were posted to control access to damaged ships and maintain order along the waterfront. At airfields, surviving aircraft were dispersed where possible. Maintenance crews assessed damage to runways and facilities. Anti-aircraft units replenished ammunition stocks and repaired equipment. Army Air Forces personnel conducted searches for downed aircraft and missing aircrews. Debris was cleared from operating surfaces to restore limited flight capability. Coastal defense units maintained observation posts and gun batteries at readiness. Minefields and harbor defenses were checked for integrity. Submarine nets and boom defenses were examined to ensure they remained intact. Harbor patrols increased in frequency, and identification procedures were enforced for all vessel movements. During the afternoon of December 7, reports of possible enemy submarines operating near Oahu were received. Depth charge attacks were conducted by naval vessels and aircraft in response to sightings and sonar contacts. These actions were logged and reported through command channels. No confirmed results were recorded at that time. In Washington, information concerning the attack was consolidated from reports transmitted by military and civilian agencies. Messages were sent to commands worldwide advising of hostilities. Orders were issued to place forces on appropriate alert levels. Diplomatic communications were managed through established procedures. On Oahu, civilian authorities coordinated with military commanders to implement emergency measures. Civil defense organizations addressed blackout enforcement, traffic control, and public safety. Curfews were imposed in certain areas. Public communications were limited to official announcements delivered by radio and posted notices. During the evening of December 7, further intelligence reports were evaluated by commanders in Hawaii. Aircraft patrols were extended as fuel and crew endurance allowed. Naval vessels not severely damaged prepared to sortie if ordered. Ammunition handling procedures were adjusted to permit more rapid access to ready-use supplies. Overnight, repair crews worked under illumination to stabilize damaged structures and equipment. Temporary power and communications lines were installed where possible. Medical personnel continued treatment of casualties, with surgical teams operating continuously. On December 8, morning reconnaissance flights were conducted to search for enemy forces. Patrol aircraft covered assigned sectors to the limits of their range. Reports from these flights indicated no immediate contact with enemy surface forces. Submarine patrols were adjusted accordingly. Formal casualty lists were compiled by unit commanders and forwarded through administrative channels. Identification of remains was conducted by medical and personnel officers. Burial details were organized in coordination with chaplain services and local authorities. Salvage planning began for ships damaged in the harbor. Naval salvage officers surveyed wrecks to determine feasibility of refloating or repair. Divers conducted underwater inspections, documenting hull breaches and obstructions. Equipment and materials required for salvage operations were requisitioned. Army units reviewed air defense dispositions. Surviving aircraft were reorganized into operational groups. Training schedules were suspended, and emphasis shifted to operational readiness. Additional radar operating hours were implemented, and information center staffing was expanded to provide continuous coverage. Naval Command issued directives regarding dispersal of ships, anti-aircraft readiness, and patrol coordination. Destroyers and cruisers conducted escort and screening duties as required. Fueling and resupply operations were prioritized for vessels assigned to patrol. Throughout December 8, reports continued to arrive regarding Japanese attacks at other locations in the Pacific. These reports were incorporated into situational assessments. Commanders adjusted defensive postures based on available information, recognizing limitations in intelligence coverage. Logistical units addressed shortages of ammunition, medical supplies, and spare parts. Warehouses were inventoried, and requisitions were submitted to mainland depots. Transportation assets were allocated to move supplies to critical locations. Civilian workers employed at naval shipyards and bases reported for duty under emergency conditions. Work shifts were extended. Security procedures were reinforced, including identification checks and restricted access zones. On December 9, salvage and repair operations expanded. Pumps were installed aboard flooded ships to remove water. Temporary patches were applied to hull breaches. Fires aboard some vessels continued to smolder and required ongoing attention. Training and operational coordination between Army and Navy units increased. Joint air defense exercises were curtailed in favor of actual operations, but liaison officers exchanged information regarding aircraft movements, radar contacts, and identification procedures. Intelligence officers compiled summaries based on available intercepts, reconnaissance reports, and field observations. These summaries were distributed to commanders within the constraints of security regulations. Efforts to locate enemy carrier forces continued without confirmed results. By December 10, certain airfields had restored limited operational capacity. Fighter aircraft conducted patrols over Oahu and adjacent waters. Maintenance crews worked to assemble aircraft from damaged components where feasible. Naval authorities initiated formal boards of inquiry to collect statements and records related to the events of December 7. Officers and enlisted personnel were instructed to preserve logs, orders, and communications records. Testimony was gathered under oath as procedures required. Throughout this period, daily routines for many personnel consisted of extended duty hours, interrupted rest, and rapid shifts between tasks. Mess facilities operated continuously to provide meals. Temporary accommodations were established for displaced personnel. Harbor traffic was regulated to prevent congestion and ensure security. Merchant vessels were directed to anchor or depart according to naval instructions. Harbor control logs recorded all movements. By mid-December, the immediate emergency phase transitioned into sustained defensive operations. Patrol schedules, repair work, and administrative processes settled into structured routines adapted to wartime conditions. The situation remained fluid, with commanders maintaining readiness for further developments based on information available at the time. Following the initial days after the attack, military activity in the Hawaiian area continued under sustained alert conditions. Commanders maintained assumptions of possible renewed enemy action based on incomplete intelligence and the absence of confirmed information regarding the disposition of Japanese naval forces. Air and sea patrols were conducted daily according to revised operational schedules, with priority given to approaches from the north and west. Naval air stations increased the tempo of patrol aircraft maintenance and turnaround. Crews worked to restore damaged patrol planes to service, often using components salvaged from destroyed aircraft. Aircraft availability remained limited by shortages of spare parts and the condition of runways and hangars. Fuel storage and distribution systems were inspected repeatedly to prevent further loss from leakage or fire. Army Air Forces units reorganized squadrons to maximize operational strength. Aircraft that could be flown were assigned to continuous defensive patrols over Oahu and surrounding waters. Pilots flew multiple sorties per day, with flight times adjusted based on fuel endurance and weather conditions. Ground crews operated in extended shifts to support flight operations. Radar stations on Oahu transitioned to continuous operation. Personnel rosters were expanded, and additional training was conducted during off-duty hours to improve tracking and reporting procedures. Communication lines between radar sites and information centers were repaired and reinforced. Reporting formats were standardized to reduce ambiguity and delays. The Army Information Center increased staffing levels to provide full coverage around the clock. Liaison officers from naval aviation units were assigned to facilitate aircraft identification and coordination. Aircraft recognition materials were updated and distributed. Procedures for issuing alerts were reviewed and adjusted within existing command authority. Anti-aircraft defenses underwent reconfiguration. Army and Navy units repositioned guns to improve coverage of key installations and anchorages. Ammunition stocks were redistributed to ensure ready availability. Live-fire exercises were suspended except where necessary for testing equipment, with emphasis placed on readiness and maintenance. Naval vessels that remained operational conducted patrols and escort missions. Destroyers were assigned to anti-submarine patrols in designated sectors. Sonar equipment was tested and calibrated. Depth charge inventories were checked, and additional supplies were requested through logistic channels. Reports of submarine sightings continued intermittently throughout December. Each report was investigated using available assets. Air and surface units conducted searches, and contact reports were logged and forwarded. In several instances, attacks were executed against suspected contacts, followed by standard post-attack procedures. Confirmation of results remained inconclusive. Salvage operations at Pearl Harbor expanded in scope. Specialized salvage crews arrived from the mainland to augment local personnel. Heavy equipment was brought into the harbor area to assist with lifting and patching operations. Coordination between salvage teams and shipyard authorities was formalized through daily planning meetings. Divers conducted systematic surveys of sunken and damaged ships. Measurements of hull damage, sediment conditions, and obstructions were recorded. Plans were drawn for sequential removal of water, debris, and damaged structures. Safety procedures were enforced due to the presence of fuel, ammunition, and unstable wreckage. The naval shipyard operated continuously under emergency conditions. Machine shops, foundries, and electrical repair facilities worked extended hours. Priority was assigned to restoring essential harbor services, including power generation, compressed air, and communications infrastructure. Medical services maintained expanded operations. Hospitals treated ongoing injuries related to salvage and repair work in addition to casualties from the attack. Medical supply inventories were monitored closely, and resupply shipments were requested. Preventive medicine units conducted inspections to control sanitation risks associated with debris, standing water, and overcrowded facilities. Administrative units compiled reports required by higher headquarters. These included damage assessments, personnel rosters, equipment inventories, and operational summaries. Clerical staff worked under conditions of limited space and disrupted filing systems. Records were reconstructed where originals had been destroyed. Military police and naval shore patrols enforced security regulations. Access to restricted areas was controlled through passes and checkpoints. Nighttime lighting was regulated under blackout conditions, with exceptions authorized for essential operations. Patrols monitored waterfront areas and industrial zones. Civilian labor continued to play a role in repair and logistics activities. Shipyard workers, dock workers, and construction crews were integrated into military schedules. Coordination with civilian authorities addressed housing, transportation, and rationing issues affecting the workforce. On the mainland, additional units were alerted and prepared for deployment to the Pacific. Transportation planning addressed the movement of personnel, aircraft, and equipment. Shipping schedules were adjusted to prioritize military cargo. These preparations were communicated to Hawaiian commands as information became available. In Hawaii, training programs were modified to focus on immediate operational requirements. Classroom instruction was reduced in favor of practical drills related to air defense, damage control, and emergency response. New personnel arriving in the theater were integrated into units with abbreviated orientation. Naval Command issued directives governing the handling of intelligence materials. Security classifications were reviewed, and access controls tightened. Briefings were conducted to remind personnel of information protection requirements. Mail censorship procedures were implemented in coordination with postal authorities. Intelligence sections continued analysis of available data. Reports from reconnaissance flights, radio intercepts, and foreign broadcasts were collated. Information gaps were noted in internal summaries. Requests for additional reconnaissance assets were forwarded through command channels. Weather conditions during December affected operations. Periods of heavy rain and cloud cover limited flight visibility and radar performance. Sea states influenced patrol effectiveness and salvage work. Weather forecasts were integrated into daily operational planning. The boards of inquiry established earlier continued to gather documentation. Witness statements were recorded regarding actions taken before and during the attack. Logs, signal records, and duty rosters were examined. Proceedings followed prescribed military legal procedures, with findings reported through formal channels. Personnel management became an ongoing concern. Units tracked fatigue levels and attempted to rotate duties where possible. Leave was suspended except for emergency cases. Replacement personnel were assigned to fill vacancies caused by casualties and transfers. By the latter half of December, certain ships damaged in the attack had been partially stabilized. Some vessels were refloated or moved to dry docks for further repair. Others remained in place pending availability of resources. Salvage priorities were adjusted based on operational needs and technical feasibility. Air defense posture remained unchanged in principle, with continuous patrols and readiness maintained. Coordination between Army and Navy aviation improved through routine exchanges of flight plans and contact reports. Identification friend or foe procedures were emphasized to reduce risk during heightened activity. Logistical planning extended into the coming months. Stockpiles of fuel, ammunition, and provisions were reviewed against consumption rates. Storage facilities were expanded or reinforced where possible. Distribution routes within the islands were reorganized to improve efficiency. Civil defense measures continued under military supervision. Air raid drills were conducted for civilian populations. Emergency shelters were identified and supplied. Public information efforts focused on compliance with regulations and reporting of suspicious activity. As December progressed, the operational environment in Hawaii settled into sustained wartime routines. Daily activities were structured around patrol schedules, repair work, administrative reporting, and readiness maintenance. Commanders continued to operate based on the information available at the time, maintaining alert status and adjusting procedures in response to observed conditions and incoming reports. In the last weeks of December 1941 and into early January 1942, command routines in the Hawaiian area continue under war conditions with standing orders emphasizing continuous readiness. Daily schedules at headquarters include morning and evening situation conferences, compilation of patrol summaries, and dissemination of contact reports. Staff sections maintain running estimates of aircraft serviceability, fuel levels, ammunition expenditure, and personnel strength. Written orders and memoranda circulate through established chains, with copies filed in command registries and distributed to subordinate units by messenger and signal circuits. Air warning operations proceed on a 24-hour basis. Radar stations rotate crews in shifts, with maintenance intervals inserted when equipment permits. Operator logs record time of contact, bearing, estimated range, and track. Reports move by telephone to the information center, where plotting boards and log sheets are maintained continuously. Watch supervisors record the disposition of friendly aircraft in the air, expected arrivals, and scheduled training flights. Liaison personnel from aviation commands remain on duty in the center to coordinate identification and to match tracks against flight schedules. When tracks are reported outside expected corridors or without matching friendly flight plans, alerts are passed to anti-aircraft commands and interceptor units by prescribed call procedures. Fighter units maintain strip alert and patrol schedules. Aircraft are positioned for rapid takeoff, with pilots assigned in readiness tents or nearby facilities according to unit practice. Start carts, fuel trucks, and armament crews remain positioned near alert aircraft. Takeoff and climb procedures are standardized to reduce time to altitude, with assigned intercept vectors issued from the control center when tracks are held sufficiently to permit direction. Patrol aircraft continue sector searches over assigned bearings to the limits of endurance. Flight logs record takeoff times, fuel loads, armament, crew assignments, weather observations, and any contacts. Anti-aircraft defenses operate under revised readiness orders. Gun crews rotate through watches at batteries protecting airfields, harbor approaches, and key installations. Ammunition handling procedures are adjusted so that ready boxes remain filled to authorized levels. Magazine access schedules are revised to permit rapid resupply, and security arrangements are implemented to balance access with guard requirements. Fire control equipment is inspected and tested. Rangefinders, directors, and communication lines are checked daily. Units conduct drills without firing, rehearsing target acquisition, fuse setting, and the transmission of firing data from directors to guns. At Pearl Harbor, Harbor Control continues to regulate all movements within restricted waters. Entry and departure clearances are issued only after identification checks. Patrol craft maintain assigned routes inside and outside the harbor entrance, with instructions to challenge unknown craft and to report all irregularities. Boom defenses and nets are inspected, with maintenance crews addressing damage and wear. Guard details remain posted at piers, fuel storage areas, and repair facilities. Shore patrols enforce curfew regulations and access restrictions, with checkpoints established at main approaches to naval and military installations. Salvage work remains a continuous operation. Navy Yard authorities coordinate diving teams, cranes, pumping crews, and repair gangs. Work orders specify tasks by ship and compartment. Divers enter flooded spaces to remove bodies, secure loose ammunition, and attach lifting gear. Pumps operate for extended periods to lower water levels in compartments sealed by temporary patches. Steel plates and timber shoring are fitted to damaged areas under direction of salvage engineers. Floating cranes reposition heavy equipment and remove damaged superstructure sections when required to reduce top weight or clear access to hatches. Dry dock schedules are revised repeatedly to accommodate ships requiring immediate attention. Docking plans are prepared with calculations for stability and weight distribution. Keel blocks are arranged according to hull form and expected loads. As vessels enter dock, lines are tended by yard crews and ship personnel under docking officers. Once in dock, inspections identify ruptured plating, distorted frames, damaged propellers, and compromised rudders. Repair priorities are assigned to hull integrity, propulsion, electrical power, and firefighting systems. Welding crews work in shifts, with safety officers enforcing ventilation and gas detection in confined spaces. Fire damage ashore and afloat continues to require attention. Burned wiring and switchboards are replaced. Temporary power is routed through cables hung on poles or laid in protected trenches. Telephone circuits are spliced and rerouted. Portable radios are issued to units where line service remains unreliable. Signal officers compile lists of essential circuits and assign repair crews accordingly. Fuel leaks from damaged tanks are monitored, with containment booms deployed where oil remains on the water. Cleanup crews recover oil-soaked debris and dispose of it under instructions intended to reduce fire hazard. Medical services maintain expanded staffing and continuous coverage. Hospital administration records admissions and dispositions. Surgical teams treat burns, fractures, shrapnel wounds, and crush injuries. Blood supplies and plasma stocks are inventoried daily. Ambulance routes are coordinated with military police to permit rapid transport. Mortuary affairs units continue identification and processing of remains recovered during salvage operations. Chaplain services provide burial arrangements under military procedures, with records maintained for notification and administrative reporting. Administrative offices continue compilation of casualty lists, awards, and personnel replacements. Muster rolls are reconciled against hospital lists, burial records, and unit reports. Replacement assignments are prepared to fill vacancies in critical ratings and specialties. Training detachments deliver accelerated instruction to new arrivals, emphasizing weapons handling, damage control, aircraft servicing, and communications procedures. Units conduct on-the-job training to qualify personnel for watch-standing duties, including radar operation, plotting, gunnery direction, and engine room watches. Supply and logistics sections handle ongoing shortages under rationing and allocation procedures. Ammunition shipments arrive by transport and are offloaded under guard. Ordnance officers supervise storage and distribution. Fuel deliveries are scheduled to maintain operational levels while repairs continue to damaged storage and piping. Spare parts for aircraft, radios, and sonar equipment are requisitioned through standard forms, with priorities assigned by operational commands. Warehouses expand operating hours, and inventory clerks maintain updated stock cards. Transportation pools assign trucks and drivers to move equipment between docks, depots, airfields, and batteries. Intelligence sections maintain daily reporting. Summaries include patrol results, submarine contact reports, and reports from outlying stations. Radio intelligence personnel maintain watch schedules and log intercept times, frequencies, and bearings where direction finding is available. Dissemination follows security rules, with classified material controlled by sign-out logs and safes. Briefings are conducted for commanders and operations officers, with emphasis on current contact reports and changes in known enemy activity as received through official channels. Messages arriving from Washington and other commands are logged by communication centers, time-stamped, and routed through distribution lists. Boards and inquiries continue collecting documents and statements. Custodians of records are instructed to preserve original logs, message files, and duty rosters. Signal logs are compared with unit records to establish transmission and receipt times. Watch bills are collected to determine manning at key stations. Statements are taken from radar operators, information center personnel, anti-aircraft officers, aviation duty officers, and ship command teams, with attention to the sequence of actions, orders received, and actions executed. Where records are missing due to damage, reconstruction efforts rely on copies retained at relay stations, alternate filing rooms, or higher headquarters. Within air warning operations, procedures continue to be revised by written orders. Reporting thresholds are specified for large formations, single aircraft, and unidentified surface contacts detected by coastal observers. Telephone scripts are distributed for concise reporting, including bearing, range, altitude estimate where available, and track direction. Supervisors require immediate notification of any track approaching within specified distances of Oahu without friendly identification. Drill schedules are issued to rehearse alert transmission from radar stations to the information center, from the information center to interceptor units, and from control officers to anti-aircraft commands. Aircraft parking and security measures at airfields remain under controls intended to reduce vulnerability to sabotage and to manage alert readiness. Guards patrol flight lines. Entry to hangars is restricted by passes. Aircraft are dispersed more widely than earlier arrangements, with revetments and sandbagging constructed where materials are available. Fuel trucks and bomb trailers are staged in designated areas with security details. Armament crews maintain stocks of belts and ammunition cans near alert aircraft, recording expenditure and replenishment. Patrol operations over surrounding waters include coordination with surface units. Contact reports from aircraft are transmitted to Naval operation centers, where plots are maintained of patrol tracks and reported sightings. Destroyers assigned to anti-submarine patrol receive vectors to investigate contacts when feasible. Standard reporting includes time, position, nature of contact, and action taken. Post-attack reports are required after depth charge drops, including estimated target depth, speed, and any observed oil or debris. Search patterns are executed according to established anti-submarine doctrine, with adjustments based on sea conditions and available equipment. Civil defense measures continue under coordination between military authorities and territorial officials. Air raid wardens conduct neighborhood checks during blackout hours. Siren systems are tested periodically. Public movement is restricted during curfew periods, with exceptions for essential workers carrying permits. Hospitals and utilities coordinate emergency plans with military liaison officers. The harbor area remains under heightened control, with civilian fishing and recreational boating restricted or prohibited in designated zones. Early in January 1942, additional aircraft and personnel arrive in Hawaii by transport and carrier ferry operations. Aircraft are assembled and tested, with acceptance checks recorded by maintenance officers. New units are assigned sectors and integrated into patrol schedules. Orientation briefings include local procedures for radio discipline, identification codes, emergency landing fields, and reporting requirements. Commanders issue standing orders regarding the handling of classified material and the prohibition of unauthorized discussion of operational details. As repairs proceed, some ships damaged on December 7 are moved to new moorings to clear salvage areas and to facilitate yard access. Tugs and yard craft assist under harbor pilot direction. Mooring plans are drawn to reduce congestion and provide maneuver space for emergency movement. Power and water connections to moored ships are arranged through shore services where ship systems remain damaged. Watch details aboard these ships are maintained to monitor flooding, fire risk, and security. Investigation and documentation activity includes the preparation of operational narratives by units and commands. These narratives are written in chronological form and supported by appendices of messages, logs, and diagrams. Times are recorded in local time as used in unit logs. Where exact times are uncertain, entries note approximate timing with reference to known events such as the first explosions, general quarters signals, and the arrival of the second wave. These documents are transmitted under cover letters and filed in command archives. During this period, communications discipline is enforced. Radio transmissions are controlled by frequency assignments and call sign changes. Authentication procedures are required for certain messages. Code rooms operate under increased workload, with clerks processing traffic and maintaining registers. Courier runs between offices and command posts are scheduled to carry urgent written orders where radio congestion persists. Alternate command posts and message centers are designated in case primary facilities are damaged or disabled. Training continues in the form of drills conducted under operational conditions. Ships at anchor conduct general quarters drills, testing internal communications, damage control parties, and anti-aircraft gun crews. Shore batteries conduct readiness checks. Radar stations conduct tracking exercises using friendly aircraft. Medical units conduct mass casualty drills while maintaining patient care. Firefighting units conduct pump and hose tests, coordinating with ship crews and shore hydrant systems. Weather and sea conditions remain factors in daily operations. Patrol routes are adjusted for visibility and cloud ceilings. Radar performance varies with atmospheric conditions, and logs note periods of reduced range or clutter. Salvage operations pause at times when sea swell enters the harbor area or when heavy rain reduces safety for diving and welding. Daily weather reports are integrated into operational messages and posted on unit boards. Throughout January and into February 1942, the pattern of operations continues with periodic alarms triggered by unidentified tracks, submarine reports, or false signals caused by equipment malfunction or weather effects. Each alarm is handled through established procedures, reports are logged, plots updated, alerts transmitted, and interceptors or patrols launched when available. After-action notes are entered in watch logs, with maintenance requests initiated when equipment fault is identified. Replacements for lost equipment continue to arrive in shipments. Radar spare parts, anti-aircraft components, and aviation maintenance tools are issued to units on receipt. Ordnance depots distribute small arms and ammunition for shore security. Construction units build protective works, including revetments, trenches, and sandbag positions near airfields and key installations. Work schedules are organized by engineering officers, with progress reported through daily work logs. As new directives arrive from higher headquarters, local orders are updated. Distribution lists are revised to ensure that key watch stations receive urgent messages without delay. Duty officers are assigned specific responsibility to ensure that incoming warnings are brought to the attention of commanders and operations officers. Message handling procedures are reviewed during staff meetings, with emphasis on logging receipt times and acknowledging critical traffic. The operational posture in the Hawaiian area remains organized around continuous air warning, daily patrol execution, harbor defense, salvage and repair, and administrative reporting. Units continue to record actions in logs and to transmit summaries through established channels, maintaining routines structured by watch schedules, maintenance cycles, and standing orders in force at the time. In February 1942, the command structure in the Hawaiian area continues to operate on a sustained war footing. Orders in force require continuous readiness, continuous air warning coverage, and daily patrol execution. Headquarters sections maintain situation maps and plot boards, with updates entered from message traffic, patrol reports, and local observer reports. Watch officers at Naval and Army operations centers maintain duty logs that record incoming messages by time group, source, subject, and action taken. Copies of key dispatches are routed by messenger to staff sections responsible for operations, intelligence, logistics, and communications. Radar stations maintain shift schedules to keep equipment in operation at all hours. Maintenance personnel conduct inspections during low-traffic periods and perform repairs when tubes, cables, and power components fail. Operators record contacts in station logs with bearing, estimated range, and track. Reports are transmitted to the Information Center using standardized formats. At the Information Center, plots are maintained on transparent boards and paper charts, with tracks marked at timed intervals. Identification decisions are recorded in log sheets and passed to fighter control and anti-aircraft commands when required. Liaison personnel continue coordination with Naval Air Commands and with airfield operations offices to reconcile plots with friendly flight activity. Fighter squadrons maintain alert aircraft on designated strips, with pilots assigned to readiness shifts and briefed on expected conditions. Armament crews load and maintain ammunition belts and service machine guns and cannon. Fueling crews top off aircraft to standard alert loads. Start equipment and fire extinguishers are positioned near aircraft. When alerts are issued, aircraft launch under local procedures and climb to assigned altitudes. Control officers issue headings and altitude instructions when radar tracking permits. Patrol routines continue over designated sectors, with pilots required to submit mission reports on landing that include times, positions, weather, and any contacts or unusual observations. Patrol aircraft operations continue with emphasis on searches along probable approaches to the islands. Patrol plans specify bearings, distances, altitudes, and reporting requirements. Navigators maintain dead reckoning plots and record fixes when available. Radio discipline is enforced to limit transmissions to required reports and emergencies. On return, crews submit written patrol reports to operations and intelligence sections. These reports are collated into daily summaries that record total hours flown, coverage sectors, and contacts. Where contacts are reported, follow-on searches are assigned and surface units are vectored when feasible. Naval surface patrols continue with destroyers, patrol craft, and other available vessels assigned to anti-submarine and reconnaissance duties. Patrol sectors are defined by geographic coordinates and time schedules. Sonar operators maintain watches, logging contacts and environmental conditions affecting sound propagation. When contacts are held, vessels execute standard search and attack procedures. Depth charge attacks are reported with times, estimated target data, and any observed evidence. After-action reports are forwarded to higher command with endorsements by commanding officers. Harbor entrance patrols enforce challenge and reply procedures and maintain close surveillance of the boom and channel. Harbor defenses remain under continuous guard. Boom defenses and nets are inspected and maintained, with work orders issued for repairs to floats, cables, and anchor points. Harbor Control maintains records of vessel movements and enforces restrictions on civilian craft in designated zones. Identification checks are conducted at piers and controlled access points. Shore patrols enforce curfews and maintain order in waterfront areas. Security measures remain in effect for fuel storage sites, ammunition depots, communication centers, and repair facilities. Salvage and repair work at Pearl Harbor continues as an organized, scheduled operation. Navy Yard authorities issue daily work plans that allocate diving teams, crane crews, pumping stations, welding teams, and electricians. Divers enter compartments to remove debris, cut away damaged structures, and secure loose equipment. Pumps operate continuously to lower water in compartments sealed by patches. Welding teams install steel plates and reinforce shoring. Floating cranes lift damaged turret sections, masts, and superstructure components when required. Removed material is barged to disposal areas or to scrap yards under controlled procedures. Ships in dry dock undergo repairs according to priority lists. Hull inspections identify ruptured plating and distorted frames. Repair crews replace damaged steel, renew rivets and weld seams, and align shafts where possible. Electrical crews replace switchboards, wiring runs, and motors damaged by fire and flooding. Machinery crews disassemble and clean turbines, pumps, and auxiliary equipment where saltwater intrusion occurred. Damage control fittings, watertight doors, and valves are inspected and repaired. Each repair action is recorded in yard documents and ship repair logs. Completion dates are adjusted based on material availability and findings during inspection. Administrative sections maintain extensive reporting requirements. Personnel offices continue reconciliation of rosters, including transfers, replacements, medical evacuations, and casualties. Pay records and allotments are updated for personnel killed or wounded. Notification procedures follow regulations requiring verification and routing through authorized channels. Unit clerks maintain watch bills and duty rosters under the expanded readiness requirements. Supply offices maintain stock records, issue logs, and requisition forms. Priority codes are applied to requests for radar parts, aircraft engines, ammunition, medical supplies, and communications equipment. Medical services continue under expanded workload. Hospitals treat injuries sustained during salvage work, aviation accidents, and routine illness. Surgical and ward services maintain staffing schedules. Preventive medicine inspections continue in camps, barracks, and field kitchens. Sanitation measures are enforced at work sites where oil, debris, and standing water present hazards. Medical officers submit periodic reports on admissions, discharges, and supply status. Training continues under operational constraints. Units conduct drills for general quarters, anti-aircraft readiness, and damage control. Radar operators conduct tracking drills with friendly aircraft as targets. Fighter control personnel rehearse scramble procedures and intercept coordination. Anti-aircraft batteries rehearse fire control procedures, fuse setting, and communications without firing. First aid and stretcher-bearer drills are conducted at unit level. Engineering and construction units train personnel on the operation of heavy equipment used for revetments and protective works. Construction activity continues around airfields, coastal defenses, and key installations. Engineering officers direct the building of revetments, sandbag positions, trenches, and protective walls. Work crews excavate and place fill, using available machinery and manual labor. Materials are allocated through supply channels, with lumber, sandbags, cement, and steel distributed to projects deemed critical. Progress is recorded in daily engineering logs and reported to higher command. Intelligence sections continue compilation and dissemination of daily summaries. Reports from patrol aircraft, surface units, and coastal observers are collated. Radio intelligence and direction finding stations maintain logs of intercept activity and bearings. Classified handling procedures remain in effect, with distribution restricted to authorized recipients. Briefings for commanders and operations officers focus on current contact reports, changes in patrol directives, and updates received through official channels from other theaters. Information gaps are noted and requests for additional reconnaissance assets are transmitted through command channels. Message traffic remains heavy. Communication centers operate with expanded staff, processing incoming and outgoing dispatches. Logs record receipt and transmission times, precedence, and routing. Authentication procedures are applied to operational orders. Code rooms maintain registers for classified messages and ensure secure storage of cryptographic material. Courier runs continue for delivery of documents when circuits are congested or when written confirmation is required. Alternate communication paths are maintained as backups, including radio nets, landlines, and messenger routes. During this period, air raid alerts occur intermittently due to unidentified radar contacts, reports from observers, or ambiguous signals. Each alert follows prescribed procedure. Radar stations report tracks, the information center plots and evaluates, alerts are passed to interceptor units and anti-aircraft commands, and patrol aircraft or fighters are launched when required. After the event, logs are completed, maintenance checks are conducted if equipment malfunction is suspected, and written summaries are forwarded through command channels. Within the Naval Command, operational planning continues for the deployment of forces beyond Hawaiian waters. Ships repaired sufficiently for service are prepared for assignment, with crew readiness evaluations conducted by commanding officers. Ammunition loads, fuel capacity, and spare parts allowances are checked against sailing requirements. Where ships remain under repair, temporary watch detachments continue maintenance of security and stability. As months progress into spring 1942, the salvage program proceeds through sequential phases. Some ships are refloated and moved to dry docks, others remain under staged pumping and patching. Divers continue recovery operations in compartments where access becomes possible as water levels are reduced. Ammunition and fuel are removed under controlled conditions to reduce hazard. Salvage reports are filed with estimates of remaining work, material requirements, and safety concerns. In parallel, the administrative record continues to be assembled by boards and investigative bodies. Statements, logs, and message records collected earlier are organized into files. Clerks prepare typed copies and index documents. Command endorsements and forwarding letters accompany completed sets. The process follows prescribed legal and administrative procedure, with custody maintained for original records where possible. Within daily operations, readiness measures remain in force. Watch schedules, patrol planning, equipment maintenance, and security enforcement continue according to standing orders. Units maintain records as required: radar logs, patrol reports, gunnery readiness reports, ship engineering logs, supply issue logs, medical admission registers, and construction progress reports. These documents are compiled and transmitted through established channels, forming the working record of operations as conducted at the time. By mid-1942, the tempo of emergency response has shifted into sustained operational routine. Repairs, patrols, air warning operations, and logistical support continue without reduction in readiness requirements. Commanders and staffs continue to act on incoming reports and directives as received, maintaining procedures aimed at immediate defense, continued repair and salvage, and the management of forces and resources in the Hawaiian area under wartime conditions.